What is SQL injection and are they still relevant in 2025? Hey everyone, welcome to this channel, and in this video we will learn everything about SQL injection. We will understand it completely and we will also learn about the ways to prevent it. So let's go to the screen. Starting with what is an SQL injection, it is a type of a cyber attack where attackers manipulate the SQL queries to gain unauthorized access of a database. So whenever we have a website, we always do have a database, and in that database we actually store the information related to our user. And in case of an SQL injection, what happens is that these cyber attackers, they use some code, and they use that code to actually give to your application through some inputs. They give that code to that input, and the code actually comes to the SQL query. And when you are not using these techniques to prevent the SQL queries, what happens is that the complete query gets run and they are able to get the access of your database. Now, all this can lead to certain things like unauthorized data access. The attackers can actually have all of your data. They can do the data modification, or they can even delete the data. And they can actually have the sensitive information that you have about your users. So this all can happen in case of an SQL injection. Now, going next to how it actually happens, how it actually works, how they get the access. So an attacker inputs malicious SQL code into user input fields. So on the website, we always have some search inputs, and we keep that to make it handy for the users to search if they are actually looking for a particular thing or information. So in that search input, the attacker gives certain SQL code, and that SQL code, when we are not using any validation, that gets passed directly to the SQL query, and that query gets run. When it gets run, it gives the data, and in some cases it gives the grant of the data to the attacker. So the application passes this input directly into SQL queries without validation. This alters the intended SQL behavior, and it grants the unauthorized access or the modifying access data to the attacker. Now going next to, this is an example of what an SQL injection looks like. So inside the input, suppose the attacker gave this text, or 1 is equals to 1. So this tends to be always true. And in our application, we have this query, select everything from users, where username is this, or so you can see that what comes inside the username is this part, this quote, and till this space. So it goes inside, and you can see the this particular query, it goes to this part, or so this tends to be always true. And if it get run as the query, it will give the access of 1, and it will actually give the access to the attacker. Now going next to how you can prevent SQL injection. So there are certain ways which you can use to prevent the SQL injections happening to you. The first and the most important thing that you can do is to use the parameterized queries or prepared statements. So we have this way of writing the SQL queries, and in this way what we do is that we don't directly write the query that username is equals to the quotes. We actually use question marks first, and then we bind it with the statement, the input that we are getting. So this is one of the most important, this is one of the significant way that can actually make a lot of impact in avoiding the SQL injection happening to you. Next way is to use the input validation and sanitization. So you can actually reject the invalid input. So if the special characters are coming, so in case your field is related to phone number, or it is related to number or email, so you can beforehand just eliminate, you can put the validation related to the field, and you can reject the special characteristics, spaces or something, and use whitelist for accepted patterns. You can use the regular expression for it. Third way is to use the least privilege principle. So whenever we are using this SQL, and whenever we are connecting with a database, we always do have a user, and that user have some certain privileges of they can view the data, they can delete the data, update the data. So these privileges you can actually modify, that you don't use the delete data. So with using limiting that user data like privileges, what can happen is that you actually to a great extent you limit that scope of mishappening happening in your data. And the fourth thing is error handling. So with this, you can actually avoid exposing detailed error messages. So with this, you don't need to just give your particular query, so the attackers don't get the idea of the query. So this also you can do in order to prevent the SQL injection. Now going next to what a vulnerable and what a secure code looks like. So you can see here we have one query, and this is in MySQL. So select everything from users where username is. So here you can see we are directly appending that the input, the username and password. But in a secure code form, what we are using is we are using this prepare. So in this prepare, first we are using this username, you are using this password. So it actually the syntax is quite different for each of the library depending on what language, what backend language you are using. So here you can see we are then binding it when bind param and username with the username and password with the password. So this is one way by which you can significantly reduce the chances of the SQL injection. Now going next to tools to detect the SQL injection. So there are certain tools automated as well as the manual action that you can do. First we have that sqlmap.org. This is a site. There is a package you can actually make use of it, and it's a automatic SQL injection and database takeover tool. It will actually help you. It will automate the process of checking the SQL, checking your database if it's being affected by an SQL injection. Then there is one other tool, zproxy.org. So this also you can use to have that SQL injection checked up. The other thing that you can use is the manual actions. So you can regularly security testing and code reviews. You can do the regular checking of your code base. You can have the regular checking of your database queries, and you can monitor what queries are being performed on your database, and you can check if there is something unusual happening. And next, this is it for this video. If you like this type of content, if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel, and thank you for watching.